Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to create a cupcake dress. The focus is on the ruffles. You will learn how to create ruffles, how to cut out the layers or let's say steps that will help you to create a cupcake ball dress. So just as you have seen in this video, if it looks like what you are interested in learning, stay tuned. So here in this tutorial, we are going to be using the tool to create our ruffles. Now, what I want you to know is that we are going to use 20 yards. This 20 yards is not really a standard, but it depends on how full or scanty you want your layers or steps to be. So in this case, I want to use 20 yards and I want my layers to be full. So we are going to be cutting out these 20 yards in twos. We are going to divide 20 in twos. So now if you divide 20 in twos, you will have 10 each. I'm going to take the first 10, I'm going to cut. So this is the first 10 yards we are going to cut. Bear in mind that we are going to cut it twice. Like the step 1, if you are cutting step 1 10, you're going to cut step 1 times, but I'll be explaining only on the first 10 yards. So you are going to repeat the same thing on the second 10 yards. Okay, now we are going to cut. So you arrange your fabric. I'm going to remove this strong edge out. I folded my fabric because it is rumpled. I pinned it so that I'll be removing this edge, but we are going to cut this in layers. So you're going to cut in steps. The first one is going to be 10. You're going to cut out 10. You're going to cut out 10. Then next, you're going to cut out 12. You're going to cut out 12. You're going to cut out 12. Then the next, you're going to cut out 14. Our next is going to be 14. So let's go back and cut. Like I said, I'm going to cut out this first edge is not good. I've cut out this edge out. Now the next, our first step is 10. The next is 12. The next is 14. Then the last layer at the waist, you're still going to cut 14. 14 is going to be at the waist. Mind you, the gathers, it depends on how full you want it to be. This is just the step. If you need more net on each step, you are going to add it. For example, the first step that we call 10, if the 10 is on the line that you have 10, you are going to, how will I explain it? You are going to cut more of that 10. You will understand as the class we start sewing them. So this is another 14. Let's see what's remaining here. Wow, 12. So now let's cut the skirt. When we cut the skirt, you will understand how you are going to put it on the skirt. Okay, now we'll be cutting the down part of our dress. I've already folded my fabric, and for me, I'm making a dress for a 2-year-old. So the shoulder to knee is 21. I subtracted the top, which is 8.5, and I got 12.5 as the what is remaining. So our skirts will be 12.5. Like I always teach you people, you must have a starting line. You can choose to draft this out on a paper or do it freehand. So here is our starting line. Here is our starting line. So the down is going to be 12.5 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. Half at the waist, half down. You can make it more, it's a thing of choice. So in my own case, I'm going to be making it 13.5. So this is my 13.5. It depends on the age of the child you are making. So our waist measurement is 20.5. If we divide by 4, we'll get 5.125. 5.125. I hope it's clear. You're going to get 5.125. Then you're going to add your 1 inch sewing allowance or seam allowance. Then at the down part too, you are going to measure the same thing down, 5.125. Then you're going to add 3 inches. You go out by 3 inches to create that A-line shape plus 1 inch seam allowance. So you are going to draw your line. You can see that we have already created the A-line. So the down part, you can make this. Some people do it like half circle. It depends on what you want. But here we are going to cut it in an A-line format. So the next thing we are going to do, it looks like this, my pen is not visible enough. But with this explanation, I hope you guys will understand. If you don't understand, you ask questions. Here, we will come up by 1 inch and create this curve. Because you don't want your skirt to have a sharp. And you are going to cut. So we are going to cut it now. We will now use the front to cut the back piece. So all you're going to do is to take the front. I've arranged my fabric. Take the front, put it, and cut out the back piece, leaving your zip allowance. You remember to leave your zip allowance. So I want it to stay in place, so I'm going to be pinning it. This is just to help it stay in one position so I can cut out. So this is our zip allowance. So we are going to cut. So we are now done. We are done cutting. So what you're going to do now is you're going to go to the sewing machine and join them together. You're going to join the side seams together. So when we join it together, I will come and explain the markings of how you're going to sew your net to it. So I'm going to join it and I'll be back to show you guys. Okay, I'm now back. I have joined the sides and this is what I have. As you can see, this is it. I have joined it. Now we are going to be measuring our lines. We'll be measuring our lines. So we are going to be measuring, the first one is The gapping, you can choose to make your own 1.5. You can choose to make your own. It depends on what you want. There is no formula. There's no standard. It's how full you want it. Now remember your zip allowance. So we are going to, the first step is going to be 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure 2.5 inches all the way. This is 2.5 inches. This is 2.5. Now I have gone ahead to draw the line so I can explain better. So our first line here is 2.5. Then the next line is 1 inch. The next line is 1 inch. The next line is 1.5. The next 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So the distance between all this is one, and here to here is 1.5. Here to here is 1.5. Here to here is 1.5. Here to here is 1.5, and then we'll have 1 inch. So this is how you're going to do your layers. If you want to use 1.5 all through, depending on the age of the child, because you may find a bigger child or even a smaller child, then you have to reduce the spacing between. So for me, this is what I'm going to be using. So the distance from here to here is 1.5. This is at the waist. So 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 5 times. That is if you include the weight. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 4 of these lines are 1.5 plus the waist. That is now 5. Then after then, from here to here is 1 inch. From here to here is 1 inch. Then 2.5 inch, because you are going to hem the down part of it. So you are now going to go to the machine. At the machine, you are going to be sewing your net into these lines. So the first line here, you are going to sew the 10, the length of 10 that we had cut. You are going to gather your 10 inches here. You are still going to gather your another 10 inches here, another 10 inches here. So your 10 inches is going to be on the line of 2.5. It's going to be on the line of 1 inch, and it's going to be on the line of this other inch. Now, when you now start sewing the line of 1.5 inch, that is when you sew your 12 inches and 12 inches. 12 inches is going to enter in 2 lines. Then the next line will be 14, 14, 14, and you finish. So let's go to the machine, and as I'm sewing, I'll be saying it so that you guys will understand. So we are starting now. So you are going to take your 10, and then you are going to sew in the middle. This is our 10. So you are sewing in the middle of this 10. 5 this side, 5 this side, and that's how you're going to do your gathers. So let's go ahead and start sewing. So you're going to take it, and then you're going to sew in the middle of the net. 5 this side, 5 this side. So I'll be gathering mine directly as you can see. I kept it in the middle. 5 this side, 5 in the middle of the 10. So that's how we're going to, I'm making my gathers directly on the sewing machine, following the first line. If you look at this line, that's our first line. That was 2.5. So I'm going to be gathering. So you are going to continue like that until you finish. You're going to continue gathering. You can choose to gather outside and come and sew, or you can choose to gather direct. For me, I have decided to gather mine directly. So in order not for this video to be long, I'm going to pause it and finish this line, then come back again when we start the next line. Okay, now we are starting our second line. We are done with the first line. Now you are going to push it aside. So this is the second line. So this second line, we are also going to gather 10 on it. So even this one, you're still going to do the same. You're going to gather in the middle. You will put your gathers in the middle, making 5 this side, 5 this side. The gather will be in the middle. Then you push it the same way you have pushed this one side. That's why you're going to gather this one. You also gather it in the middle. The gathers are going to be in the middle. So you are going to continue like that until you finish, you get to the other end. So to make this video not to be too long, I'm still going to pause it, and when I finish, we'll come back and start the next line too. I want to do a quick explanation because the fuller it becomes difficult to capture it, recording it while sewing. But you guys will have to understand it, then you can sew it. So before I go back and continue, I want you to understand the first step is our 10 inches. We gathered it in the middle. Our second step is still 10 inches. We gathered it in the middle. Our third step is still 10 inches. We gathered it in the middle. So you are going to gather it. If you want it to be fuller than this, you increase your gathers. If you want it to be scanty, you make it scanty. So we have sewn step 1, step 2, step 3. Now coming to our fourth step. Our fourth step is where we are going to sew our 12 inches. If you open it, this is the fourth step. So now I want you to pay attention here. You are going to sew your 12 inches on this step and the next one. That is the fourth and the fifth step. You are going to sew your 12 inches. Then you are now going to the sixth and the seventh step. You are going to sew your 14 inches. Then at the waist, you are still going to gather at the waist. But when we get here, I will now tell you what to do. At the waist is going to be different. It's not going to be the same way we are sewing all these ones. So let me give you a quick recap. We have sewn step 1, 2, 3, 10 inches. Step 4 and 5, 12 inches. Step 6 and 7, 14 inches. Then the last step, which is at the waist, there we are going to sew 7 inches. But that 7, we are still going to double it, and it's going to be one side. So when we get to this point, I will still explain. So right now, I am not going to be recording and sewing again because it's difficult, but I've explained. So I'm going to fill in all this space and come back and give you an explanation and show you how it came out. Okay, this is our the down part of our cupcake. You can see how the layers have formed. This is this other side of our cupcake. So what I want to show you guys here is the waist. Now we have come to the waist, which is the last part of this. So at the waist, you can choose to make it one layer, you can choose to double it. In my own case, I choose to double it, but now you are going to cut a length of 7. We were cutting 10, 12, 14. But coming to the waist now, you are not going to sew in the middle. You are just going to gather. This is my 7 already. I've already cut it. Now you can choose to double the 7 before you do your gathers. You can choose to do it single. So in my own case, I'm going to double it. So what you are going to do is you are going to sew it, this edge, you are going to gather it at the waist, because this is the one that is going to join to the top. So the other ones we're sewing them in the middle, but this one you are going to gather one edge. Whether you choose to double it or you choose to make it just one layer, you are going to gather it and then sew it at the waist, which is our last step. After this step, that is when you're going to finish your top and join it. So right now I'm going to join this. After joining it, we'll complete the top before I'll show you people how it looks like. Okay, I've gone ahead to do so many things, but I want to explain. You have followed the steps. So I've gone ahead, I joined the top to the waist. So this is what it looks like. Now the next thing you're going to do is to sew your lining at this down part. You're still going to cut your lining the same way you cut the down part. Now we have finished fixing this also. You're going to sew the lining. After sewing the lining, joining the lining here, you're now going to fix your zip. You're not going to complete your zip. The next thing is trimming. So I will not be going into those details. I'm going to do then. I move to the trimming, the shaping of the cupcake. Now remember to hem here inside this edge. You are still going to hem it, fold it and hem it inside. So the next thing, after all those process, the next thing you're going to do is to trim the cupcake. So I'm going to do that, then we're going straight to the trimming of the cupcake shape. So let's go ahead and trim it so that you see how you can trim it according to how you want it to come out. Okay, this is our cupcake dress. As you can see, it's taking shape. Now what we are going to do is you're going to be trimming this cupcake. If you look at it, some of these ruffles are longer, so you are going to trim them depending on the shape you want to bring out. You can trim. I'm going to be trimming mine. I just want you people to know that after fixing of all these ruffles, you will be trimming them. You will trim them and it will blend. You're going to trim the under. If you can see, there's enough excess,